let's build this Gantt chart together. We'll start by renaming the file in the Sheet tab, so everything is clean and easy to organize. Then, in the center of the sheet, let's add the name of our project. Next, let's take care of the visual setup. Click the small square in the top left corner of the sheet to select the entire spreadsheet. This lets us apply a few changes to the whole sheet at once. First, let's align the text to the center, turn on text wrapping, and choose a font that fits the style you want. Now we can create a small section for our project information. First, add the project start date. In this cell, we'll use a formula that returns today's date, so the sheet always updates automatically. Under that, let's add the project end date, which will show the latest end date from our project tasks. After that, we can start building the main project table for phase 1. Let's begin with the first column, task. Then add name, status, progress bar, start date, end date, and days left. Above the table, add a header called Phase 1, to make everything easier to visualize. Let's add a few sample tasks and names. This will help us see how the chart works before we build the full version. Now let's make the status column more useful and more visual by adding drop-down menus. To do that, create a new sheet and name it Data. In this sheet, type the statuses you use most often. For example, you can use statuses like Not Started, In Progress, Completed, On Hold, or Delayed. Of course, you can replace these with your own status names. Now go back to the main sheet, select the cells where you want the drop-downs to appear, click Insert, then Drop-down. From the drop-down options, choose Drop-down from a range, then select the range from the datasheet where you typed your statuses. After that, click Done. Let's also add some colors to make the status drop-downs easier to read. Select the drop-down range again, go to Insert, then Drop-down, and the Settings panel will appear. Here, you can assign a different color to each status, just like I'm showing on the screen. Now we can spend a moment improving the visual style of the table. Add borders, adjust the column widths, and choose colors that make the sheet clean and easy to read. Next, we're moving on to the fun part, creating progress bars. First, enter a few sample progress values, and format them as percentages. Then, in the column next to the progress values, enter the formula you can see on the screen. This formula creates a small bar chart inside the cell. It takes the progress value from the selected cell and turns it into a visual progress bar. The maximum value is set to 100%, and the color of the bar is defined inside the formula. The ifrare part simply keeps the cell empty if there is no value yet, so the sheet stays clean. After entering the formula, press Enter. then drag the formula down to apply it to the rest of the tasks. Next, we have the start date and end date columns. Here, we want to add a small calendar picker, so it's easier to choose specific dates. Select the range for the start date and end date columns, then go to Data, choose Data Validation, and from the drop-down select as Valid Date. Now, when you double-click a cell, a mini calendar will appear, and you can choose the date directly from there. The last column in our table is days left. This column will show how many days are left to finish each task. To do that, enter the formula shown on the screen, then drag it down to apply it to the rest of the rows. Let's also improve the table visually. One useful tip is to change the background color of the cells that contain formulas. This makes them stand out, so you don't accidentally delete them later. Now it's time to build the actual Gantt chart timeline. We'll create a row of small cells that will work like a calendar grid. Each small cell will represent one day. You can add as many of these cells as you need. In my example, I want the chart to go until the end of the year, but you can make yours shorter or longer depending on your project. In the first timeline cell, enter the project start date, which we already have in cell C5. Then change the display format so it only shows the day number instead of the full date. In the cell below, we want to show the day of the week. We'll use a formula that displays the first letter of the weekday, so it's easier to understand the timeline at a glance. Now select both cells and drag them to the right as far as you want your Gantt chart to go. After that, let's add some styling. Add borders, adjust the cell sizes, and choose colors that make the timeline easy to follow. Now we'll make the Gantt chart automatically highlight the correct days for each task. Select all the timeline cells where the colored taskbars should appear. Then go to Format, choose Conditional Formatting, and enter the formula shown on the screen. This formula checks if each date in the timeline is between the task's start date and end date. If it is, the cell will be colored. This is what creates the visual bar in the Gantt chart. Choose the color you want for the highlighted cells, then click Done. Now you can test it by changing the start and end dates of a task. The timeline should update automatically. To make the sheet look even cleaner, we can hide the grid lines. Go to View, then Show, and turn off grid lines. Next, let's add a month view above the chart. This will make the timeline easier to navigate, especially if your project covers many weeks or months. Add the month label above the date row, then drag it to the right across the whole timeline. Some projects have more than one phase, so let's duplicate our table. Copy the Phase 1 section, paste it lower in the sheet, and rename it to Phase 2. You can add as many phases as you need, depending on the size of your project. Finally, let's adjust the display format for the start date and end date columns, so the dates look clean and consistent. Select the date columns, go to the date format settings, and choose the format you prefer, just like I'm showing on the screen. And that's it. Now we have a clean, visual, and fully functional Gantt chart that helps us track project phases, tasks, statuses, progress, deadlines, and the full project timeline in one place.